Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get started. My name is Cindy Cook. I'm a school health consultant and regional school health coordinator at Wayne RESA. And today, and I also want to let you know that we have Richard Backlor here, which is one of our science consultants. He's on the back channel and he'll be monitoring the chat and anything else that he needs to monitor at this point. So thank you, Rich, for being here today. And thank you all for being here at 3 o'clock on a Friday afternoon. I appreciate you taking the time of your day to be here. First off, what we'd like to do is we've got quite a few participants in this workshop today. So what I'd like you to do is in the chat, if you would, put your name, first and last name, the district and school that you're from, your position, which is all easy for you to do. And then on a scale of 1 to 5, how are you feeling today? 1 is horrible or worse, and 5 is just dandy. And then you'll have an option is to put why you're feeling that way, okay? So just if you would start in the chat, put your name, school district, position, and on a scale of 1 to 5, how are you feeling today? And I'm going to open up the chat and see that who we have here. We've got Jane from Dearborn, chemistry teacher, Danielle, Miriam. Yay, chemistry. Grosse Pointe Public Schools, grade 3 and 4. Grosse Pointe. STEAM teacher, I think it's STEM teacher at 5th grade. Welcome. Universal Learning Academy instructional coach, thank you. Grosse Pointe, Plymouth Canton, preschool, student support coordinator at Plymouth Canton. Jennifer from Taylor, an instructional coach. We've got Joelle, and I'm not going to be able to say all your names today, but as I'm going through here, I'll try to say as many of them as I can. Social worker from Walker Elementary. Feeling happy, TGIF. Thank you. Michelle Morin, Grosse-Ile, 2nd grade, feeling happy. Jenny Winters, school culture and educational consultant. How are you feeling today, Jen? Okay.
A 5 for me.
A 5 for you, good. Thank you, Jenny. Jamie from Taylor Schools, music, K5, and they're feeling great. Vicky, Spanish, high school, awesome. I'm trying to hear, no audio. Oh, I don't know how to help you with that. And we have Felicia, principal, welcome, administration. And again, Rich is putting in the form to sign in. So if you would remember to sign in, please. And if you're just coming in the chat, we're just putting our name, district, school, position, and on a scale of 1 to 5, how are you feeling today? All right, thank you very much. All right, so for these workshops this summer, sorry about that, I'm going a little bit quicker than I want to go here. We have decided that we wanted to focus our opening on the whole child. MDE, the Michigan Department of Education, now embraced the whole child approach. And so we just want to make sure that we're thinking about the whole child, not just the academic piece of the child, physical, social, emotional well-being of the child also. And so we have a few quotes here, and these are some of my favorites. It says, in teaching, you can't do the Bloom stuff until you take care of the Maslow stuff. And so we'll talk about Maslow today. I looked at Bloom today when I was looking for adjectives for my objectives. And so I used Bloom today, but again, we have to do the Maslow stuff first. And this is just a quote. It came out April 8th, 2021. And it says a deep focus on building strong relationships. And we're going to talk about relationships today. Fostering a sense of belonging and attending to social, emotional, and cognitive development is not in conflict with efforts to accelerate academic learning. These strategies are mutually dependent and reinforcing. All right, and we have to, social emotional isn't just one more thing to do. And there's a quote in here that talks about that a little bit later. This is from A Nation at Hope. I don't know how the age of the participants here today, but some of you may remember when A Nation at Risk came out. And A Nation at Risk was talking about our schools and how poorly our schools were performing. And we saw a lot of things come out of that report. As a result of that report, we saw a lot of the testing and a lot of accountability measures and stuff like that. Well, this is A Nation at Hope that just recently came out. And it says there's a remarkable confluence of experience and science on one point. Children learn best when we treat them as human beings. And I hate to even have to say that, with social and emotional as well as academic needs. The promotion of social, emotional, and academic learning is not a shifting educational fad, because you've been hearing a lot about social, emotional learning lately, especially with the pandemic. It's the substance of education itself. It's not a distraction from the real work of math or English instruction. It's how instruction can succeed. And so these go along very nicely with what we're talking about today. So educating the whole learner, again, can't simply be reduced to policies or proposals. It's a mindset. And we have to be using social emotional skills consistently and constantly throughout our day, in and out of school. And so those were just some introductory slides to get us focused on the whole child. I'm going to spend a little bit more time on that today, just so that you have a little bit of a better understanding of that. And then we'll get into some self-care. And I'll go over that stuff in just a minute. But in case no one has told you today, you're doing great. Okay, thanks for being here. Zoom features, I think we all know them at this point. We will be using the chat quite a bit. Thank you for muting yourselves. It's nice. I'll let the video, you decide on video if you want to show yourself or not show yourself. It's fine with me, okay? And you can use reactions if you would like to use reactions also. Chat feature, again, it can go to everyone, or you can privately chat with Rich if you need to, or myself, if you have any questions. And just some virtual norms and reminders: respect. We'll be doing a lot of chatting today, so just be respectful, be kind. I hope that you're going to stay engaged for the entire workshop today. And then just patience, because we're still all adjusting to this online learning, including myself. Regardless of how many Zoom meetings you do, there's usually a snafu somewhere. And these are professional learning agreements. Just to stay fully present and engaged, take charge of your own learning, listen actively. Silence anything that rings, dings, or sings. That would be your phone, and that goes along with delay distractions. I know it's easy to put your camera on, your camera off and do other things. So hopefully you can delay those things for just an hour and a half. Assume positive intent, and hopefully we'll have some fun today. Oops. I am funded to do some of this work through Medicaid dollars. And so I just have to spend a couple of minutes talking about two programs that we have in Michigan. If you have students by chance that are uninsured, these are two programs that exist in Michigan. The first one is Healthy Kids, and it's for health and dental care for pregnant children under the age of 18 and under. It's for Medicaid eligible families. Access may be limited, and so there may be some limitations to it, but there is retroactive enrollment, and there's no monthly premiums for that. The My Child is for health and dental care for children under the age 18 and under. And this is for families who earn between 150 and 200 of the poverty level. I don't expect you to know what that is. But the nice thing is that there's one application that the families fill out and MDHHS figures out which program they qualify for. This is, if your income is too high for Healthy Kids, the program above, they cannot have any other health insurance, and it's only $10 a month per family, not per child. And if you have folks in your school that might be underserved, please let them know that we do have programs in Michigan to insured. I did have a teacher that was pink slipped at one point. She had a couple of kids that played hockey and she wanted to make sure that they had health insurance, and she enrolled them in one of these programs, and she said it was wonderful. The hardest thing was getting them off of it once she was recalled back to the school. So if that's the biggest problem, let it be. All right. So learning objectives, we're going to go through the whole school, whole community, whole child model very quickly, but just to give you an idea as to how it's supposed to work. We'll discuss some self-care strategies and why they're so important. And that goes along with social emotional learning also. We'll explain the importance of relationship building. We'll look at social emotional learning and why it's important for all school stakeholders. And then the benefit of teaching SEL skills. And then we're going to practice some compassion. And that will end up our day. So proactive chat. This is another chat. So again, to get you involved. And I wish I could hear your voices and see your faces right now. But what I'd like you to do is think about a teacher who had a great impact on your learning. So think about a teacher who had a great impact on your learning. We all have those teachers. What I'd like you to do in the chat is I'd like you to name the teacher if you can. We usually remember their names. And I want you to identify a characteristic or two that allowed them to have such an impact on you. Identify a characteristic or two that allowed them to have such an impact on you. So I'm going to leave that up. And if in the chat, you will start to put those things. My AP Calc teacher, Conway, he was energetic, supportive, and understanding. Mr. Novera, patient and understanding. Thank you, Samantha. Mrs. J, she was kind and fair. Oh, here they come now, and they're going to be too fast for me to read. So kind, caring, patient, kind, caring. She still knows my name when she sees me today. Yeah, doesn't that make a difference? She was always honest and caring. From Mark, Dr. Lauder, a fantastic teacher, integrity, character, skill, and transparency. Undergrad professor, Gloria, empathy. Mrs. Harvey, first grade. She told me she loved me, so I performed for her. Okay, thank you so much. Sixth grade teacher, Diane Horwath, funny, kind, caring, and she still knows my name. I already read that one, sorry. Mrs. Perring was caring and generous. My fourth grade teacher, Mr. Emerson, trusted me to figure things out and let me fail safely. And then he helped me learn from it. Great. My education practices professor, Dr. Best, connected, equity-minded, and really helped me to understand the capabilities that I had. Mr. F, kind and enthusiastic. Thank you for doing that. We've all had teachers that have made an impact on us. And so throughout our time today, what I would like you to concentrate on is concentrate on those characteristics throughout our time today. You know, are you bringing those characteristics into your classroom on a daily basis for your students? Because you're going to be, if you are, you're going to be the teacher that students remember. Oh, I just want to forward my slide. All right, we're going to do an opening activity just to do a little tension release. So I'd like you to turn off your cameras if you would. I want you to get comfortable in the seat that you're in, or the spot, or wherever. And I want you to close your eyes. And the first thing I want you to do is I want you to unclench your jaw. Unclench your jaw. Next, I want you to relax and drop your shoulders. And we're going to take just a few minutes here to take a few deep breaths. I'm going to pull something up here and play it for you. And just listen to what she says.
Welcome. Allow yourself to invite the natural power of breathing and believing. All day you have been on the go, so now is your time to relax and just take 2 minutes to breathe. Breathe in deeply now. It doesn't matter if anybody sees you breathe deep. Just breathe deep anyways. Breathing in, expanding your body, and breathing out, noticing how you relax a little bit. Breathe in, noticing your body expanding as you breathe slowly, and breathe out. This is what gives you a quick reset. You may be on the go, and that's okay. But you have 2 minutes to breathe deeply now. Noticing your body expanding is all you have to do. And breathe out slowly, noticing your body relaxing. Notice how you feel right now after 2 minutes of breathing and believing.
So that was an SEL activity that we just did, where we just take a few minutes to center ourselves, take a few deep breaths, let some of that tension of the day roll away from our jaw and from our shoulders and throughout our whole body as we take in those deep breaths. Another SEL activity that we already did today was to check in 1 through 5 to see how you were feeling. So those are a couple of things that you can do with your students for SEL and to get them centered. Now let's get started. What are the benefits of mindfulness? And that's all that was a basic exercise in mindfulness. And there are apps that you can download that came from an app that I have on my phone called Quiet Meditation, I think, or Meditations. And it helps you slow down, helps you know yourself better. It helps you focus and concentrate. It helps you ruminate and stress less. It helps you change bad habits, helps you be more resilient, which is what social emotional learning does for us. It leads to self-acceptance and compassion for others, and it leads to a more enjoyable life. So if you haven't brought mindfulness into your own life, you might want to think about doing that. And again, just start practicing. And there are courses out there if you want to take them. And this might be something that you want to bring into your classroom when you need to center your classroom, when they need to come back to learning, and get them into their frontal cortex. Meditation is a good way to do that, or meditation or mindfulness, I should say. All right, next I want to go into the whole child very quickly. All right. The whole child actually comes from a collaboration between the CDC, the Centers for Disease Control, who you've been hearing a whole lot about because of the pandemic, and the ASCD, which is the big education people. And they have over 140,000 members in over 30 countries, I think. So again, what they did was they brought the health people and the education people together, and they developed this model called the whole child model. And basically all it is health and learning. We have to understand that healthy kids make better learners. Healthy teachers make better teachers. And so this is the WISC model. This is what it looks like. Let me go back just one or two slides. The 10 components, the components in the blue were contributed by the CDC, the Centers for Disease Control, and the tenants that are the green in the middle were contributed by the ASCD. And then of course they put the child in the middle because that's of course who we're most concerned about. And the school is part of the community. And then right here we have coordinating policy, process, and practices. We want to make sure that our policies and processes are what we're actually putting into practice. And so what school health components contribute to SEL? Well, here we go. Counseling, community involvement, physical education, physical activity, family engagement, employee wellness. In other words, as we go around, each and every one of these components has something to do with SEL. Now, what are the components supposed to do? They're supposed to talk to one another. So in the beginning, in 1987, when they developed this, when the CDC developed the coordinated school health model, they simply, they put in things that are already present in schools. You should have health education, you should have physical education, you should have a nutrition environment or nutrition services. You know, hopefully you have health services, a school nurse. Some districts do, some districts don't, some have one for the whole district. It just depends. And then again, hopefully you have counselors. We all have a social emotional climate and a physical environment. And then of course we have to be concerned about employee wellness, family engagement, and community involvement. But what we don't do is these are in silos. We don't talk to each other. And we want these components to talk to each other. So again, when they start talking to each other, what happens is we start developing a safety net for kids so that fewer and fewer kids are falling through the cracks. And when we have everybody talking to each other, this is what it looks like. We've developed a safety net. We've looked at our programs, policies, and processes. We're making sure that we're not having redundancies in programmings, that we're finding the gaps in programmings, and we're letting, again, having fewer and fewer kids fall through the cracks. And that's what the coordinated school health model is supposed to be all about. Again, we compare it to Maslow's hierarchy of needs as far as the tenants go. If we can have each of those 10 components talking to one another, then our kids are going to be healthy, safe, supported, engaged, and challenged. And that goes very nicely along with Maslow's hierarchy of needs, because Maslow said down here at the bottom, your physiological and your survival needs are first. You have to be healthy. You have to have the right food. You have to have the right amount of sleep, the right amount of exercise, and all of that sort of thing. The next thing you have to do you have to be healthy in order to get up to the next one, safety. And you have to feel safe in your environment in order to move along. And then you have love and belongingness. Again, you have to be supported. The one biggest protective factor today is when a kid has a trusted adult that they can talk to. And sometimes that a trusted adult is you in the school. And then if they're healthy, safe, supported, they're going to be engaged. Another second important protective factor for kids is having them be connected to the school. If they're connected to their classroom teacher and to the school, that's one of the biggest protective factors. And then of course, we want to challenge each kid to meet their maximum potential, whatever that may be. So again, the tenets go very nicely along with Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Our focus today, employee wellness and social emotional climate, okay? And so that just gave you a brief overview of the whole child model. I'm willing to help you. There are needs assessment tools that you can use to find out where you're at as far as the whole child and implementing programs and processes and all of that good stuff. I'm willing to help you delve into that a little bit deeper, because that is now part of the MyKIP process, which is our continuous improvement process that's coming down through MDE now. All right, so let's talk a little bit about self-care. Self-care. Sometimes it wants to change and sometimes it doesn't. Let me see if all right. Let's just take a quick look at this video. It's not a video. Well, it is a video, but you have to listen a little bit more than watch. And this is for teachers, and it's been a year. So let's just listen for a minute.
Honestly, the first thing I want to do is just burst into tears.
My tank is empty and I need to binge all the Girl Scout cookies and only wear sweatpants for at least 3 months straight.
I've been a teacher for 27 years, and this is the first time I have just hated what I do. It has nothing to do with the kids.
We were heroes 1 minute and then vilified. People wanted to blame us for having schools closed.
I wanted to stand outside the school with a megaphone and just shout, "I am just a lady. I have no idea what is going on, but I am here and I'm really trying my best."
There are things that I think we'll be able to take away from this, but for the most part, it's like,
I have taught hybrid, then remote, then back to in-person, then we got quarantined, and then I have to do state testing. Somebody somewhere is not listening to educators.
So I had my kids in the classroom, not really socially distanced. Then I had my kids on Zoom. And then I had kids I never was able to find. They were just missing. Like, take attendance, like I just gave up.
I care about my kids. I love them. But I feel like I'm choosing between my sanity and everything admin required of me.
I think one of the hardest things, it's making the middle schoolers wear their masks so we can stay at school. It's like, would you just put the damn mask on and leave it on your face, please?
It's been a struggle, but I also have really valued this year as a time to question a lot of the things that we believe about public education.
This is our chance to really shake up education, to look at what really matters, to look at how do we spend our 53 minutes in class each day.
I teach high school ELL students to see them struggling at first, but overcoming all their challenges in a virtual environment.
I'm so grateful that I looked outside as a way to safely bring my students back to school. Some days, our read alouds take place under a canopy of tall pine trees.
I can't do this without getting broken up. This year has been the most challenging, but the most rewarding. And I'm so proud of all of us, teachers, administrators, students. We couldn't have done it without each other.
America's educators are stronger and braver than you think. If we can make it through this year, we can make it through anything.
If you'd like to put anything in the chat about how that resonated with you, please do, as I try to advance my slides here. Excuse me. Oh dear. Rich, is anybody putting anything in the chat?
Not yet. Although Melissa says she can relate to everything that the presenters say. And I agree with Melissa. I've heard all of those things before over the last year and a half.
Yeah, it's been quite a year. And let me just advance my slides here. I apologize. I don't know why we're not being able to move forward here. Drives me crazy every day. This is when we have to have that patience. Because for some reason my slide isn't advancing. Oh dear. Okay, thank you. So with that, and thank you for sharing. Some of us have felt that way. You know, it's been one of the most challenging years, but in some instances, one of the most rewarding years. But one of the things that we need to do is we need to take care of ourselves, and that's part of social emotional learning also. If we don't start with ourselves, we can't be there for the students. And this is the problem. Nearly 3/4 of school professionals and 84% of school leaders describe themselves as stressed, and that's from the Happy Teacher Revolution. I would invite you to check that out. More than 3 in 4 teachers reported frequent job-related stress, compared to 40% of other working adults. Perhaps even more alarming, 27 of teachers reported symptoms of depression, compared to 10% of other adults. So again, teachers, administrators are stressed out. So why self-care? Again, as an educator, we've had many challenges to navigate during this coronavirus, and it's not done yet. And your school might be shifting between online and in-person learning. You might be adapting to new schedules and different ways of teaching. On top of it all, you're trying to keep up with the needs of your students, your family, and your friends. And it's not easy. It's understandable why you're feeling overwhelmed. You may need a reminder that practicing self-care is essential to your well-being, especially during times of uncertainty like we're in now. You may be looking for ideas on how to self-care or how to find time to practice self-care. So the time has come for all educators on all adults' health and well-being. If we want our educators to be successful, both personally and professionally, schools must be places that bring out the best in them. And so, in the chat, how do you want to feel at school? So very quickly, and Rich, I'm going to ask if you just share those with me as they come in. How do you want to feel at school? Not how do you feel at school? How do you want to feel at school?
All right, Dr. Cook, we have appreciated, content, safe in capitals, happy, appreciated, supported, appreciated, happy, energized, safe, supported, emotional safety, supported, respected, secure, proud and appreciated. Felicia adds joyful. Yay, joy.
Thank you. Thank you, Rich. Thank you for reading those out loud, and thank you for sharing. You know, so again, can self-care help us feel that way in the classroom? It's an important component, again, physical, social, mental, emotional health. It's much more than breakfast in bed and eating bonbons and all of that good stuff, okay? It does require some conscious effort. And so what is self-care? This is the definition from the National Institutes of Mental Health. Basically, it's any action that we use to improve our health and well-being. And they say there's 6 elements, so physical, psychological, emotional, spiritual, social, and professional. And again, here's just a different way to look at it. This has 8 dimensions of wellness. So you know, there's lots of information out there on wellness. It just depends on which source you go to, and which one kind of resonates with you. But ideally, self-care strategies should include an activity that addresses each of those factors every day. Okay, now that sounds a little overwhelming to me. So that means I have to address each one of these factors every single day. All right, now in some instances, we probably do to some extent, and we may not be conscious that we do it and why we're doing it. But now we can hopefully we can become a little bit more conscious of that. Self-care activities can be small. Again, if you just need to start small. Or large-scale habits, ranging from packing a healthy lunch to waking up a little bit earlier to do a mindfulness meditation before work or before your students come in. So again, it doesn't have to be, set those little tiny goals for yourself. This is the way that stress can manifest itself: body, mind, emotions, and behavior. Just take a look at that real quick. Where does your stress manifest itself? Body, mind, emotions. And maybe you want to type in one of those things. For me, it's emotions, and irritability and depression. Put me in a car when I'm irritable and I'm a crazy woman. So if you don't mind, again, sharing in the chat, how does your stress manifest itself? Are you aware of it? Is there anything coming in the chat, Rich?
Yep. So we've got a lot of body manifestations, a lot of minds and emotions, things like weight gain, so yeah, a little bit of everything.
Yeah, and it's going to be different for everybody, absolutely. But if you can realize when that stress is manifesting itself, then you can do something about it. And why is it important? Teaching is an intensive job. Practicing self-care can be in the best interest of everyone in your classroom and in your life. Self-care is about taking care of your health and making sure that you have everything that you need to thrive as a teacher. Without taking care of yourself, you won't have the energy to help your students. Put your oxygen mask on first. In the airplanes, I always say, put your oxygen mask on first before you help anybody. And again, self-care can keep you at the top of your game and be ready to handle those challenges that you face every day in the classrooms. And so again, here's some pillars of self-care: knowledge and health literacy, which I worry about health literacy because we don't teach comprehensive health education in our schools, which I'm a health educator, and I feel like we should be doing pre-K through 12 health education every year. Mental well-being. We've heard a lot about our kids and teachers' mental well-being through this pandemic. Physical activity, healthy eating, risk avoidance, good hygiene, rational use of products and services. And so these are just some types of self-care that you can do. Physical, sleep more. Somebody asked me what I'm doing for self-care. I told them I'm making sure that I'm going to bed at a reasonable time. I'm in bed by 9:30, 10 o'clock, and make sure that when my alarm goes off at 5:30 that I feel ready and able to go in the morning. So, sleeping is important. Stretching, walking, physical release, healthy foods, yoga, emotional stress management, emotional maturity, being able to identify your emotions and talk about them, forgiveness, compassion, kindness, and then you can see the rest in social and spiritual. And there you have your meditation and spiritual, or your mindfulness. But these are just some types of self-care. A couple of other ideas: set and maintain boundaries. Reflect on your feelings and needs. Recognize what is and isn't your control. We can't control what's happening around us, but we can control how we respond to it. Acknowledge moments of gratitude or joy, and use self-care routines throughout your day. So, I try to do them throughout my day, but I'm more of an end of the day person or a beginning of the day person. So it just depends on what works for you. So think in ink. I'm going to give you just about 3 minutes to do this. Number one. So if you've got a pen or pencil, if you don't want to think in ink, if you just want to reflect, that's fine also. What does self-care mean to you? So just think about that for a minute. What does self-care mean to you? What's the most challenging thing or biggest barrier in your self-care journey? So what's your biggest barrier? Very often it's ourselves. How can you make self-care a priority? And again, it's finding that time and scheduling it into your day, actually putting it on your calendar. And what is one thing you can do this week, today, or maybe this weekend? What's one thing that you can do to focus on your self-care? Because we're a key ingredient in that classroom. And if we don't feel 100%, we can't give 100%. Teachers in crisis can't help kids in crisis. So please think about self-care for yourself. All right. Introduction to social emotional learning. Teaching. This is one of my favorite sayings. If a teacher does, there's favorite little things here. If a teacher doesn't know how to read, what do we do? If a child doesn't know how to read, what do? We teach them. If a child doesn't know how to swim, we teach. If a child doesn't know how to multiply, we teach. If a child doesn't know how to drive, we teach. If a child doesn't know how to behave, what do? Do we teach them or do we punish them? And why can't we finish that sentence as easily as we finish the rest of the sentences? We really have to look at making the behaviors that we see teachable moments for kids and for ourselves. And that came from Tom Herner, who was the NASDE president in 1998. And I use that in a lot of my presentations. Again, we have to do Maslow before we can do Bloom. Social emotional learning is not a program. Although you can have a curriculum for social emotional learning. I'll talk briefly about the Michigan Model for Health today. It's not just one more thing that gets taught. It should be incorporated into everything that we do on campus, everything that we do in that school. We should be thinking about social emotional learning. This just came out April 27, 2021. What teachers and principals say they need. The pandemic has made me realize that unless we find ways to focus on students as people and engage them as people and make the work we're doing important to them where they are now, everything is for nothing. We have to start with them as people. And people, that's all social emotional learning is about. How do we treat our students? How do we treat our colleagues, our administrators, our educational stakeholders, our parents? And emotions matter for attention, memory, and learning, decision-making. They can't be separated. Relationships, health and well-being, and for performance. With the implementation of social emotional learning strategies, you can move kids along and you can see them improve in a lot of areas of their life, including academic performance. Teachers need to establish positive relationships with students in order to manage classrooms effectively. Relationships, relationships, relationships. Yeah, it's all about relationships. May seem to be an overused maxim, but it doesn't make it any less valuable or valid. So establishing, maintaining, and restoring relationships. And I want to give kudos to my colleagues who put together these slides, and I just stole them from one of their presentations that they did. So thank you to some of my colleagues. Again, there's been considerable research that's revealed that resiliency results from positive social relationships, period. positive attitudes and emotions, and the ability to control one's own behavior and the feelings of competence. So again, those relationships are so important. We need to find out, how do we build better relationships with everybody in the school. Students who have experienced traumatic events, which the pandemic is one. We've all experienced a traumatic event. Difficulty in self-regulation, negative thinking, staying on high alert, difficulty trusting adults, and inappropriate social interactions. So my next question to you is in the chat, and thank you for using the chat today, and thank you, Rich, for reading them out for us. Put in the chat, how do these behaviors look in your classroom? Face-to-face or virtual? When kids aren't connected, when they're not engaged, oops, sorry. Do you see these sorts of things in your classroom? And so in the chat, just very quickly, put how these behaviors look in your classroom. And Rich, I'm going to ask you to share again, if you would, please.
Yep, will do. So sometimes students act out. Other times students become too quiet.
Right.
Defiant behavior is sometimes shown.
Mm-hmm.
I heard earlier this week, since Dr. Reynolds, in one of the presentations I heard earlier this week, she said all behavior is functional.
Yeah.
And that really struck to me, like, that's a really great way to explain it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, every behavior is something. Yeah.
So acting out, frustration, inappropriate chats, attention issues, difficulty regulating, lots of bathroom breaks.
Exactly. Thank you.
Yeah.
And is this what it looks like? Again, kids that have been traumatized or go into their amygdalas, and then they go into fight, flight, or freeze. And this is how it looks like. This is what it looks like in your classroom. So again, we have to stop asking the question, what's wrong with the child? And we have to start asking the question, what happened to the child? Why are they displaying this behavior? Just like Rich said, behavior is functional. And so it's telling us something. And the kid is dysregulated for a reason. And sitting down and finding out what that reason is in your best interest, because then you can help the child. Establishing relationship, these are some strategies. Greet your students every day or every hourly. If you're in, high school, middle school, and they change periods, then make sure that you're greeting every student at the door, or you somehow greet every student. Promoting collaboration through teaming. Get kids into teams. Let them work with partners to begin with, to start those social emotional skills, then put them into groups of 4. Again, teach them the skills of collaborating, because kids don't necessarily know how to work in groups. I know as a teacher, I used to put my kids in group and just figured they knew how to do it. Well, they didn't. And, we have to teach them those social emotional skills of cooperation, listening, all of those sorts of things. Utilize student interest surveys to find out what their interests are. So that, again, you can maybe talk to that child about their interests if it doesn't have to do with classroom stuff. And write notes to the students. Have little sticky notes that, or have envelopes with everybody's name on it so that you don't forget anybody. And once you hand out all of those envelopes or all of those sticky notes, then you can start over again. So establish those relationships. And you have other strategies, I'm sure. Maintaining. Utilize the 2 and 10 strategy. 2 minutes a day for 10 days in a row with a student, talking about anything and everything, whatever they want to talk about. But it's a way to connect with students again. And that 2 minutes was how long we spent on that meditation or that mindfulness exercise. And that's how short it is. So it doesn't have to be, 10, 15, 20 minutes. It can turn into that. Community circles and Monday meetings, circling kids up so that they can all see each other, having a talking piece so that one person is talking at a time, having kids share, again, not very threatening things in the beginning, but then you can find things, you can get deeper and deeper as your kids get to know each other. And circles can be one of the best ways to develop community within your school. Host lunch bunches, have lunch with different groups of kids. Attend student events when possible. If they're on the volleyball team, basketball, debate, swim team, all of those sorts of things. That might mean that you go to a lot of different events, but again, kids know that you care about them that way. And again, if they feel that connectedness to you and to the school, it's important. And to restore relationships, model taking responsibility and making amends. Restorative conversations. I had a situation, I was teaching physical education at the time, a young man, I was teaching in Georgia, we didn't have a gym, he wouldn't give me the ball back. And I lost my temper and said something, I don't remember what I said. And the next day, he came up to me and I came up to him and I said, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to yell at you like that. And he said, Ms. Cook, I'm sorry too. And from then on, that relationship took on a whole different meaning. Avoid holding mistakes over students' heads. We all make mistakes. None of us are perfect. Let's learn from them. Face up, fix up, and follow up. Again, is just restoring relationships. If you've done something in that relationship, face up to it. Just like I said with the example that I gave you just a minute ago. I faced up to it, and and it fixed up and then follow up. We had a much better relationship after that, in the class and out of the class. And again, let kids see that you're vulnerable too in some instances. No significant learning can occur without a significant relationship. So again, get to know your students. Allow your students to get to know you. Again, you can share what you want to share personally, and allow students to get to know one another. And that's how you develop a community of learners. All right. In your chat, you guys, this is your community right here. We've got 26 participants. This is your best learning opportunity, is to talk to your colleagues. So in the chat, what I'd like you to write down is write one strategy that you use already to develop relationships. In the chat, just write down one strategy that you use to develop relationships. And that's all I want you to put in the chat. I don't even want you to deal with the second question. It says, how might you begin or refine one of these processes next week in your classroom? I just want to know what strategies you employ already. Put that in the chat. And Rich, I'm going to depend on you again a little bit more than I thought I was going to, but if you would.
That's okay. We're a learning community here.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I see community circles is getting a lot of response. Oh boy, it's going really fast.
I know.
Reflection time. Every morning I get my littles on the carpet and we share good news. Oh, I love that idea.
Yeah.
Circle time, check-ins, restorative practices, greet each kid by the door, community circles, again, greeting every day. That was along with students, lots of limitations, writing notes, icebreakers, small group activities, the 2x10 strategy, connecting with a student independently, briefly, and checking, but do it 10 times in a row. I think you mentioned that one. That was great.
Mm-hmm.
Greeting each student individually and asking personal questions, getting to know them as a person.
Thank you.
Lots of great ideas in there.
Thank you. So you're already doing some of these strategies. So now all we're asking is that you kind of take a look at some other things and how you might be able to refine them or use them. Again, sometimes the pressure to stick to the curriculum and the lack of time available to work on relationship building can rob us of opportunities to get to know our students. So again, I encourage you to really try to develop those relationships as much as you can. All right. And find ways to do it. Talk to your colleagues, ask them what they do, ask them the types of strategies that they use. So social emotional learning. All of our students want to be heard, but may not have the words and the tools to listen and express themselves effectively. And so it's our job to give them those words, and especially those words to express their emotions and how they're feeling, because they know how to express their emotions. It may not always be appropriate, but they do know how to express their emotions. All right. I'm going to skip this because we're half hour out and we're just starting what social emotional learning is. We will get through this. This is the CASEL definition of social emotional learning. And I like it because it says it's the process through which children and adults, all right, we too have to work on our social emotional prowess, or whatever you want to call it. I don't think that's the correct word, but we have to work on our social emotional learning also. And basically to acquire and effectively apply the knowledge, attitudes, and skills necessary to understand and manage emotions, set and achieve positive goals, feel and show empathy towards others. Empathy is not an emotion that we are born with, so we have to teach it. Establish and maintain positive relationships, again, and make responsible decisions. And so this is what it looks like in the CASEL framework. This is the old CASEL framework. The middle still looks the same. There's still self-awareness, self-management, responsible decision-making, relationship skills, and social awareness, but they've increased the number of circles on the outside. So this next view shows the new format. I'm sorry, I'm getting tired here. And it looks at classrooms. So that's the SEL instruction and classroom climate, the school-wide culture, our practices and policies, and then our authentic partnerships with families and caregivers, and then we align learning opportunities with things that are going on in the community. And as you can see over here, what are the implementation areas? We have to build a firm foundation. You have to have buy-in from your administrators. This has to go school-wide. You can't do it in 1 or 2 classrooms and expect kids in other class, you know, when they're out on the playground and stuff, to simply absorb it, because they won't. All right, we have to strengthen adult SEL competencies and capacities first. And we'll talk about how to do that. And then we'll promote SEL for students by intentionally teaching an SEL curriculum like the Michigan Model for Health, and then reflect on data. And there is data out there for social emotional learning. There are tools out there for you to address social emotional learning. But look at the short and long-term outcomes, improved attitudes about self and others. Perceived classroom and school climate is better. Positive social relationships. There it is, academic success, fewer conduct problems, less emotional distress. That's what we're looking for in our classrooms, less drug use. And then what do we do in the long term? We increase high school graduation rates, college and career readiness, you know, healthy relationships, safe sexual behaviors, mental health, and reduce criminal behavior and increase civic engagement if we're implementing social emotional learning. Here are the 5 core competencies. Again, recognizing one's own feelings and emotions and being able to recognize them and talk about them. And again, we very often have to teach kids how to calm down first in order to talk about their emotions. And that's a social emotional skill in and of itself, is learning to calm down. Because they're in their amygdala. They're in that fight, flight, or freeze. And until they can come out of their amygdala and get to their frontal cortex, you can't teach them. The next core competency is self-management, to regulate those emotions. So how do we, when I feel I'm getting angry, or I feel like I'm being embarrassed or humiliated, or, how do I handle that? Impulse control, self-discipline, self-motivation, goal setting, organizational skills. And then social awareness. This is taking the perspective of others. And so that's that empathy building. Appreciating diversity, respecting everybody in the classroom, regardless of who or where they come from. Relationship skills. Again, we've already talked about those: communication, social engagement, relationship building, teamwork. These are skills that they're going to have to take into their lives. That's why I think health education and social emotional learning is so important, because these are skills that they use throughout their entire lives. I may not use geometry today, but I'm going to use a social emotional skill. And then responsible decision making. And basically, this is just teaching them a problem solving or decision making model, where they identify the problem, they analyze it, solve it, evaluate, reflect, and then ask them some questions as far as ethical responsibility. In the Michigan model, they have some questions that ask kids, does this fit with your values? Is it safe? Those sorts of things with a decision-making model. And again, what do we get when we teach? Implicit instruction. We get positive social behavior. When the teacher instructional practices, again, you're modeling social emotional behaviors for the students. You have improved attitude, self-others, fewer conduct problems. Integration of social emotional skill into all academic curricular areas. This isn't just a health education issue. This can be talked about in EL, in literature. It can be talked about in math, in science. Don't you want your kids to be able to work together in group projects and project-based learning and all of that sort of thing? We have less emotional distress. And then if we accept this organizationally and throughout our whole culture in the school, we have improved academic performance, which is what we're looking for. Whoops. There's enough evidence out there that backs SEL as part of every curriculum. It helps fulfill the aims of education, enables students to grow into productive, competent adults. We have to start with the adults in social emotional learning. Adults who have the ability to recognize, understand, label, express, and regulate emotions are more likely to demonstrate patience and empathy, encourage healthy communication, and create safe learning environments. So again, health and safety are those first two layers of Maslow's pyramid. If they're not healthy, they don't feel safe, they're not going to learn. Emotional skills of teachers influence student conduct, engagement, attachment to school, and academic performance. Teachers skilled at regulating their emotions report less burnout and more positive affect while teaching. And that's why that self-care becomes so important. And school leaders with strong SEL competencies build and maintain positive and trusting relationships. When we're talking about SEL, we're talking about SEL throughout the entire school. How do I get along with my colleagues? Are there cliques? Are there groups that don't talk to each other? Are there some people that won't go into the lunchroom? I mean, there's all different types of things, but we have to build those positive and trusting relationships, and it has to be intentional. How can I better understand my emotions? I don't know if this is in the tiny URL yet. If it's not, I will put it in there. I'll put the PowerPoint in there also in a PDF so you can have access to all of the links. But this is one thing, this is a personal SEL reflection to kind of say, how am I doing with my SEL? And I know you can't see the questions there because they're way too small and I can't even see them. But I will make sure that this is in the tiny URL so that you can get to it. And again, just take a look at it, read through it. You know, is there an area that you might want to work on? You know, again, it doesn't have to be 9 things on the self-assessment. You know, just say, I want to work on this one thing and work on that until you get better at it and you've perfected it and you can automatically implement it. And then you can move on to something else. Why is it good? Relationships. People I've taken, I've been listening to SEL presentations this whole summer, just for this presentation, just to make sure that I have everything. And almost in every PD, regardless of what they're talking about, whether it's SEL or something else, it always comes down to relationships. Emotions affect how and what we learn. Social and emotional skills can be taught. SEL has positive impacts on academic performance, health, relationships, and citizenship. They're demanded by employers these days because they find that this is one of the skills that kids are lacking, are those social emotional skills. And SEL is a coordinating framework to overcome the fragmentation of prevention and positive youth development programs. Again, if we implement that whole child model and we're looking at each one of those components and they're talking to one another, then we find if we have fragmentation of prevention, we find if we have gaps, we find if we have redundancies. So let's take a quick look at this. This is a 6-minute video. I think we're doing good here. And this just talks about social emotional competencies in school. So let's take a look at this. 6 minutes and 3 seconds.
Social and emotional skills are the essential skills for success in school, work, and life.
Social emotional learning centers their mind and body. It reduces their emotional tension so they can be open to new content and material. We find that academic outcomes increase exponentially when students are nurtured, loved, and cared for, that we get much more out of them when we first address social emotional needs. So for us, it's actually an academic intervention and not just an emotional one.
If we expect students to be college and career ready, it's important for us to focus on these skills and competencies: self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship skills, and responsible decision-making. Self-awareness is the ability to identify your emotions, to be able to tie thoughts and feelings to behaviors.
We find that self-awareness is one of the hardest things for young people, being aware of their own body space and the impact of their words and emotions on other people. So a lot of the work we do is reflective, through conflict mediation, through circles, through journaling, having them see their own impact on the world and then how to shift that or make a different choice next time.
Self-management is the ability to self-motivate, to have self-control, to regulate one's emotions.
In the classroom, that may be a breathing exercise, or that might be counting 5 or taking a break.
So with students who don't really know how to deal with their anger or don't really know how to resolve conflict, we're giving them a tool that helps them deal with it in a less stressful way.
Social awareness is about embracing diversity, showing empathy for others. Activities might include service learning projects, addressing social justice issues. Role-playing is a great opportunity for students to address how a person might have felt in a conflict on the playground.
We're going
to see if other people have had some of the very same experiences around bullying that we've had.
You're in my boat if you have a bully now.
Wow, I see a lot of people.
Relationship skills are important in project-based learning. It's the ability to work cooperatively with someone, to resolve conflict.
It's the one skill you need your whole life. You may not need calculus tomorrow, but you have to know how to work in relationship, whether it's for a coworker or a life partner. You have to know how to handle conflict and how to handle challenges.
Sometimes at recess, Monty would come over and just start talking about us and saying mean things.
Is it your job to make Danae's job at school hard?
No, I know it's a form of bullying, and sometimes I'll say sorry to her.
So you choose to be someone's ally and make a better choice.
Responsible decision-making is considering the well-being for self and others. It's evaluating the consequences for various behaviors or actions. We do this through shared agreements, one-to-one problem solving, or having students debate an issue.
If you were like, hey, Kashida, how much does an A cost in this class? And you took out your wallet and, and I was like, I think $50 would work. Which one of us would be corrupt in that case?
You're the one that's asking for the money?
We're truly teaching these students to be productive citizens. We're teaching them life skills. We're teaching them how to problem solve effectively. We're teaching them how to be resilient.
I think of all the billions of dollars we've spent on Title I and all these intervention programs, and when all is said and done, what do we have to show for it? I think we're trying to teach technical things instead of devoting some of the resources to teach who you are as a person. Once you know who you are, then learning becomes exciting because you've already established a discipline.
It's important for teachers and principals to understand that it can't be a binder off the shelf. It can't be something that happens from 2:15 to 4:30 on Tuesdays and Thursdays. It has to be part of the school culture.
Giving teachers flexibility, giving them a range of skills, giving them different ways that it can look, and allowing them to take their own personality and match that to what they want in their classroom has been the best way to get authentic, true practice.
If we continue to do what we've always done, we're always going to get what we always got. Is that good enough? I don't think it's good enough for the 21st century. We need to be the outliers to try things that have never been tried and see if they work. What are we waiting for?
So that gave you a little bit of a feeling for, again, school-wide culture and climate. That it's through the entire school. It's practiced in everybody's classroom, not in just some of the classrooms. And so when we look at school-wide SEL, these are the things that help to build school-wide SELs. Number one, build awareness. Hopefully you guys are going to take some of this information back to your schools. It takes commitment from leaders, central office, principals, assistant principals, and ownership, that this is something that you want to see done in your school. Of course, you have to create a plan. Again, there's strengthening adult SEL. We promote SEL for students, and then we practice continuous improvement, which is what my KIP is all about. Again, there are toolkits out there to help you implement SEL throughout the entire district or school, depending on what you're looking at, and I would be happy to share those with you, and I will put those in the tiny URL as well. So let's talk about some strategies for improving. We've got about 15 minutes left. I'm going to go through these relatively quickly. Sorry about that. Again, start the day with check-ins. A number of you already said that you're doing that. Allow students to work with partners and then teach students to work in partners, then in groups. Nurture a culture of kindness. Role play. Again, role play teaches kids the skills that they need to have in a safe environment, so that they feel as though that they can use those. It gives them the self-efficacy to feel as though they can use those skills once they leave the classroom and they're actually faced with a situation like that. Build students' social emotional vocabulary. And you can do that by using charts like this over here on the side. How are you feeling today? Make space for reflective writing, which they talked about, journaling, and whether or not you have access to those journals, sometimes those journals can give you important information about kids. And then set up a calm down corner. When kids are getting frustrated or they're getting dysregulated, give them a place where they can go and calm themselves down so that they can get out of that amygdala or wherever they may be and get back into their frontal cortex. Again, this is just one. My colleague has one where it has a little picture frame, so you can put a picture frame over the feeling that you're feeling like. This is another one that's a little bit more complicated for secondary students. Okay, you've got the mad, sad, scared, joyful, powerful, and peaceful in the middle, and then you see the range of emotions that radiate out from the middle. Games for social emotional learning, scavenger hunts. Virtually, you can do that. I don't know if you've seen it on Ellen or not, but she has her guests, go find something really quick, something fuzzy, or find a coin or a battery, or, something like that. Virtually, you can probably do it in the school if you wanted to. Four Corners is an activity that's like 7-Up. And again, I can give you descriptions. All the descriptions are right here at this link at the bottom. Charades and Pictionary. Guess Who. Have kids write down little facts that kids might not know about them and put them into a container and pull them out and have kids try to figure out who it is. Comedy Hour. Each student brings in a joke that they want to tell. You can use Quizlet Live. I haven't used, but I use Kahoot, and they can use their phones if they have their phones in the classroom. Rock, paper, scissors versus the teacher. A show and tell. You can have student teachers where the students are actually the teachers for the skill for the day. Invite guests in maybe to do yoga or mindfulness if you're not comfortable with that. And then I use emojis in the chat, or the 1 through 5. Read alouds are a great way, to talk about social emotional skills. They help to build empathy, provide discussion topics, problem solving, decision making, encourage and appreciate diversity. So read alouds are important. Frequent check-ins. And again, these are just different types of check-ins that you can use. Not the 1 through 5 that we used. Younger students, ask them to describe if they were the weather, what that'd be like today. Again, drop the emoji into the comments. Well, that didn't happen for almost a whole hour and a half. That's my dog barking at our neighbors. Color check-in, assign different meanings to different colors and have them check in that way. Mindful breathing. Belly breathing is just, they see their belly going up and down or their chest raising and falling. Deep square breathing is they simply outline a square. And on, the first side of the square, they take a deep breath. On the next side of the square, they exhale. On the next side of the square, they inhale, and so on and so forth. And again, I'll share these. I forget where I got these, but I'll share the link with you. Hand tracing breathing is just holding up your hand and taking, I have to find my camera, taking, inhaling, pausing, exhaling, inhaling, pausing, exhaling, inhaling, so on and so forth. Practice gratitude. You know, they say that if you practice gratitude for a month, it will change your mindset. So 3 things that you're grateful for, and these are just, again, a list of things that you can ask students, you know, an artist, musician, performer, athlete that they're grateful for. You can then bring that music or that author, that performer or athlete into your classroom in a variety of different ways, a book, something that brings them joy outside. I'm going to skip this because we're running out of time. The Michigan Model for Health, again, has been tested. It is on the CASEL's list registry of effective programs and practices. And so if you're interested in the Michigan Model, this is one of the things I'm funded to do also. But again, if you're implementing the Michigan Model with fidelity, and again, it's pre-K through 12, kids in the 4th and 5th grade had better interpersonal communication skills, social emotional skills, and self-management skills, pro-health and pro-safety attitudes, stronger drug and tobacco refusal skills, later age of first cigarette use, increased knowledge and skills in physical activity and nutrition, less alcohol use and aggressive behavior in the past 30 days, enhanced knowledge about the hazards of drug and reduced intention to use alcohol and smoke cigarettes. So again, if you are implementing the Michigan Model and you're doing it with fidelity, hopefully you're going to get the same type of outcomes out of your students. The teachers thought it was great. It was well received by students. And so the teachers thought in both 4th and 5th grade, it was easy to teach. The lessons were engaging. The lessons were completed in the estimated time. That's a little bit lower. The student worksheets were appealing, the posters were effective, and the rubrics were helpful. So if you're interested in the Michigan Model for Health, please let me know. And I will be happy to help you out with that. I actually have some free licenses. It's now digital, and I have some free licenses that I will be advertising to superintendents and curriculum directors to get more people on board with the Michigan Model for Health. All right, closing exercise. The compassion is wishing to see others free from suffering. And those are kind of some words if we would do a compassion wordle, I forget what they call them, wordles. Those are some of the words that you may see. So this compassion exercise, again, having compassion is the ability to understand another's emotions and the desire to alleviate their suffering. And it makes us feel connected. It gives us purpose. It grounds us in our individual and collective power to transform our experiences as human beings. And in such a profession like teaching, that can be isolating. Learning to passion is vital to keeping us engaged in our larger school and global community. So this is what I'd like you to do. Turn off your cameras again. I'm sure everybody's on mute because I haven't heard anything. Close your eyes. Take some deep breaths just to center yourself. Unclench your jaw. Relax your shoulders. And just relax your body from head to toe. And so your eyes are closed and you're taking some deep breaths. Just repeat to yourself after me. All right, so you're just going to repeat the statement just to yourself. Just like me, this person is seeking some happiness for their life. Just like me, this person is seeking happiness for their life. Repeat to yourself. Just like me, this person is trying to avoid suffering in their life. just like me, this person is trying to avoid suffering in their life. Repeat to yourself, just like me, this person has known sadness, loneliness, and despair. Just like me, this person has known sadness, loneliness, and despair. Repeat to yourself, just like me, this person is seeking to fulfill their needs. Just like me, this person is seeking to fulfill their needs. And repeat to yourself, just like me, this person is learning about life. Just like me, this person is learning about life. And you can open your eyes and kind of come back. And that's just a compassion exercise that we can use maybe when we're in one of those moments with one of our students. And we just have to say to ourselves, you know what? They're just trying to meet their needs like I am. If kids come to us from strong, healthy, functioning families, it's our job, it makes our job easier. If they do not come to us from strong, healthy, functioning families, it makes our job more important. And so that's what I want to end on today. I have a couple of resources for you to look at if you're interested in looking at the Nation at Hope report. Character Strong. I would encourage you to check out the Happy Teacher Revolution. There's the personal SEL reflection, and then check out We Are Teachers also. I want to thank you for attending today. It is 4:29, and if you have any questions, concerns, you want to look into implementing the whole child model or SEL or the Michigan Model for Health, please feel free to reach out to me. Thank you again, and have a wonderful weekend.